This year for Thanksgiving, I wanted to share with you a recipe that's great not only for Thanksgiving itself, but as a great way to use up leftovers. So I'm going to show you how to make Thanksgiving Pop-Tarts.
This week on Working Class Foodies.
These Pop-Tarts are super easy to make, and they're a great way to use up any Thanksgiving leftovers, even savory ones. If you're making pie dough for Thanksgiving anyway, go ahead and double the recipe and make these Pop-Tarts too, because they're a great snack to have around for any guests or family coming in for the holidays. To make these Pop-Tarts, start off with a basic pie dough. Last year for Thanksgiving, Brendan showed us how to make a perfect pie crust in our Thanksgiving episode. If you're watching on YouTube, you can click this box right here, right now, to pause this video and watch Brendan make the pie crust, or if you're not on YouTube, we'll put the link below. So make your basic pie dough, and then cut the dough in half. Roll each half into a ball, cover it in plastic wrap, and then stick the 2 balls of dough in the fridge for up to 2 days. If you need your pie dough to last longer, you could freeze it for up to a week in advance. So I'm going to make sweet Pop-Tarts with 3 different fillings. 1, pumpkin pie, 2, apple pie, and 3, cranberry sauce. So go ahead and make pumpkin pie filling the way that you normally would. Now, one thing to note is if your pumpkin pie filling is a little liquidy, you're going to want to tighten it up with a little bit of starch. So in a separate bowl, mix together equal parts of water and either arrowroot powder or cornstarch. Then warm up about a half a cup of your homemade pumpkin pie filling over a low flame. Whisk it constantly because you don't want to actually cook the pumpkin pie filling, you just want to warm it up and let those spices that you've put in come out. When your pumpkin pie filling is nice and warm, slowly start to whisk in your cornstarch or arrowroot powder and water mixture, just a little bit at a time. The starch mixture is important because it thickens the filling so that they don't leak out of the Pop-Tarts while they're baking. Your pumpkin pie filling won't start to thicken right away, it has to cool down first. So remove it from the heat and put it in the fridge until you're ready to make your Pop-Tarts. About 15 minutes before you're ready to make your Pop-Tarts, preheat the oven to 350 degrees. You can use pumpkin pie filling, or you can make a very quick and easy apple pie filling. Peel and thinly slice 1 apple. After you slice them, cover them in equal parts water and lemon juice. It's called an acidulated water bath, and it has 2 purposes. 1, to keep the apples from going brown, and 2, to soften them up a little bit. The lemon juice will help break them down a little bit, so they'll get really soft and creamy, almost applesauce-like, inside the Pop-Tarts. In a separate bowl, mix together half a cup of light brown sugar, a teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ginger, and 4 teaspoons of flour. Stir the brown sugar mixture together with a fork or your fingers, and then add in your apples. Make sure to coat each apple slice very well in the brown sugar mixture. You can use leftover cranberry sauce to fill these Pop-Tarts too. Just treat the cranberry sauce the same way you treated your pumpkin pie filling. Bring it up a little bit past room temperature over a low flame and stir in a mixture of 1 part cornstarch or arrowroot powder to 1 part water. About 15 minutes before you're ready to make your Pop-Tarts, take your dough out of the fridge. You want to bring it up to room temperature first. Lay it out on a floured surface and roll it out to about 1/8 of an inch thick. Trim your dough down into a rectangle. If you have a ruler, you should obviously use that. I couldn't find a ruler, I might not even own a ruler, so I used a board that was about the same size. And it worked.
Until the kingdom comes.
Then stamp out your Pop-Tarts. You want each Pop-Tart to be about 3 inches by 4 inches. You can use a ruler, but if for whatever reason you can't seem to find a ruler, go ahead and grab any rectangular object that's about the same size. Just make sure it's clean first. Once you've stamped out all of your Pop-Tart rectangles, very carefully transfer them to a baking sheet lined with either a Silpat or some parchment paper. Now it's time to add the filling. Scoop your filling into the center of each Pop-Tart and then gently spread it out. You want to leave about 1/2 inch all the way around so you can seal the Pop-Tarts shut. Now make an egg wash. In a small ramekin, beat 1 raw egg until it's nice and mixed. You're going to brush this with your fingertips or a pastry brush along the edges of your Pop-Tarts to seal them. Once you've filled all your Pop-Tarts and brushed the egg wash around all the sides, go ahead and roll out your second dough the same way as the first one to make the tops of your Pop-Tarts. Gently press each Pop-Tart top onto the bottom with your fingertips, sealing up the edges. Then press the edges down with the tines of a fork all the way around. Using that same fork, poke a few holes in the tops of the Pop-Tarts to let steam escape, and then brush each Pop-Tart with the egg wash. Now while these are baking, I'm going to make a maple glaze to go on top of my apple pie and pumpkin pie Pop-Tarts. But for my cranberry sauce Pop-Tarts, I'm just going to sprinkle them with some big grain baker's sugar. When your Pop-Tarts are all assembled, bake them at 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. You want to rotate the pan once during cooking to make sure that they bake evenly. When your Pop-Tarts are golden brown, remove them from the oven and let them cool for about 15 minutes. made a quick maple glaze for my Pop-Tarts from about 6 tablespoons of confectioner's sugar and 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Whisk this together with a small whisk or a fork, and then use a fork or your fingers to drizzle the glaze on top of the Pop-Tarts. And what I really love about this recipe is how adaptable it is. We just made a bunch of sweet Pop-Tarts, but they're also fantastic as hors d'oeuvres. Instead of filling your Pop-Tarts with apple pie or pumpkin pie, you can layer different cheeses, fruits, or fruit jams inside of your Pop-Tarts to make delicious savory hors d'oeuvres. For example, you could use those acidulated apples with some brie, some camembert, some goat cheese, or even some blue cheese, and a little drizzle of honey. Pear would also work really well, and actually that cranberry sauce and goat cheese would be fantastic together. So these Pop-Tarts are a little bit more fragile than their store-bought counterparts, but they're tastier, they're healthier, and you made them yourself. Everybody loves a good homemade treat. Best of all, you can still freeze them after they've been baked and heat them up again in the toaster. Just set your toaster to low because remember, you're reheating, not baking. These Pop-Tarts are definitely going on my Thanksgiving table this year, so let me know what you're making for Thanksgiving in the comments below or with a video response. We'll see you next week on Working Class Foodies. Happy Thanksgiving!